You're listening to Graphic Novel Explorers Club podcast, an audio book club.
Thanks for checking out today's episode of Graphic Novel Explorers Club. I'm one of your hosts, Dennis, joined by Francis.
Yes, I'm ready.
And Johnny.
Yes, I'm ready.
Not to fall in love. Anyway, today we're discussing Dark Knight, a true Batman story by Paul Dini. We hope you've already read today's title because all three of us have, and we will be discussing it in detail. So beware, spoilers ahead. We'd love for you to share your opinion and thoughts on our social media. Our Twitter account is @GNExplorersClub. We're on Facebook, and our email is gnexplorersclub@gmail.com. Graphic Novel Explorers Club is available on iTunes, Stitcher, and wherever podcasts are available. If you want to plan ahead for next episode, we will be discussing The Strange Talent of Luther Strode by Justin Jordan. And once again, we're looking at Dark Knight, a true Batman story by Paul Dini. Basically,
illustrated. Hold on, by Eduardo Risso.
Yes, very well illustrated.
Yeah,
and it's not a Batman story. I'll tell you that exactly. It's actually a true story about a little bit about Paul's life, as well as some traumatic experiences he went throughout his life, especially his beating by and mugging by some gentlemen that kind of changed the course of his life.
A gentlemanly mugging.
Yes. Excuse me, sir.
I'm about to box your ears, sir. If you don't hand over your wallet.
Your coin purse.
Yeah.
Can you lay down so I can kick you better, please?
Anyway, do you want to go over the story some more, Francis?
No, I don't think it's appropriate for her.
Oh, yeah.
She didn't read it all. No.
I did read it. I did.
That's right.
Oh, okay.
How about you, Johnny?
So, in this story, Paul Dini, if you're not familiar with him, was one of the main writers of Batman, the animated series, the classic 90s cartoon.
And Tiny Toon Adventures.
Which I loved.
Yes, Tiny Toon Adventures was great. And he also...
we're all a little loony.
My kids love it, by the way.
He also helped co-create Harley Quinn.
Oh yeah, big
with Tim Bruce, and which is a very it was a big deal because Harley Quinn was born out of the cartoon but made it into the comic book canon. So he was an illustrator a writer on these two cartoon series, and it's very interesting. Book in that it talks about the mess that his life is, or was up until the beating, and kind of like afterwards, after he got beat up, and then we shouldn't even say beat up. Beat up is like you got in a fist fight in 8th grade.
Yeah,
he was assaulted, criminally assaulted.
Right.
And then and also kind of like what it's like to be a writer.
Well, and then just kind of a nerd outcast, to be perfectly honest.
Before it was acceptable to be a nerd.
Yeah, the whole framing of the story is really interesting to me because it's told through like a pitch. Like it was like he was pitching the book, or he was teaching. Like I almost pictured him teaching a community college course on comic book writing. Like it was like a one-off thing. And then exactly, and it starts with his life and how he always felt kind of
the invisible kid.
Invisible kid. Yes.
I thought that was one of the things I liked about the. I'm kind of backing up into the drawing. We don't have to go there yet, but it's very interesting when he talks about the invisible kid. Because he's doing it, as you said, like kind of in this pitch, and he presents this kid. He says, "No, that's not quite right," and he erases the kid's face.
Yeah,
and that was very telling to me. Like he really tried really hard to not stand out.
Right.
In the rest of it, there's drawings of children at school or whatever, and they're all drawn in sepia tones, but he's done in just like a simple.
I think it's just line.
Like a circle face with. Not like a little kid would do, but it's a very simple drawing of a child
without any like real facial features.
Yeah, like very flat, two-dimensional drawing.
Exactly.
Whereas the rest of the children are fleshed out as 3D sepia tone drawings. So.
Yeah, and I really identified with that aspect of the story in terms of just kind of not wanting to rock the boat, not cool enough to be a cool kid, not wanting to voice yourself out of fear of being a target, although you still were a target, And yeah, I mean, I just identified with him just soaking up all those cartoons. It was great to see the different cartoons he was into. Like, they brought in some Hanna-Barbera stuff.
Yeah, Benny and Cecil, which I fucking loved when I was a kid.
That.
They relaunched it in the 90s. In fact, I'm wondering if he had anything to do with that. They relaunched it in the 90s around the time they did a pup named Scooby-Doo.
Yeah,
and they were very similar in their like tone.
Interesting.
Well, yeah. So in the comic book, what happens? He's this invisible kid till he gets home, and the characters bring life back to him, like this fantasy world that he has with all these cartoons and the characters.
And his parents are
concerned.
No,
they take him to therapy, so there's a level of concern there.
He even says this in the book, and to their credit, they're very encouraging. Like, if you were to write the story, they would be the type of parent where it would be like that Twisted Sister music video dad, where it's like, you're not reading comic books. Comic books are dumb, and he rips it up or something like that.
With what's his face from
Animal
House.
Exactly.
Niedermeyer.
Yes. And then that would be the kind of dad you would see, like, typically. But they encouraged him. Their problem was he was ignoring everything else, academics and everything like that. And it seemed like maybe this is the part I don't totally identify with, and I'm not sure if he was exaggerating or not, but it seemed like the characters talked to him like his imagination was so vivid. I mean, I guess I'm trying to remember when I was a kid.
I never had an imaginary friend when I was a kid.
I didn't either, and I always felt left out. Like,
you did?
Oh, I had tons of imaginary friends.
I never
and
did.
All my stuffed animals
neither did I.
talked.
No.
But see, the thing, this was, I mowed lawns in our neighborhood when I was a little kid, and I'd get $5 or $10 at the end of the week. You know, it was a pretty good chunk of change for a little kid, and I'd go to, back when there was Jimco, the predecessor to Target, I could get 2 G.I. Joe figures for $5. And so I just had a shit ton of G.I. Joe action figures, and I didn't like to play with any other kids because, like Paul Dini, I would come up with these like really intricate stories.
Right.
And it would take me like a half a day to like play out my scenario. I would just waste a Saturday. I would like build things for them to jump off of.
Totally.
I would we had a fern garden in one part of our backyard, and I would flood that. And once I got Zartan, that was in his little chameleon swamp thing.
Nice.
So I would just come up with all these really intricate stories, and I would have character development. It was insane. And when friends would come over, like, "Oh, let's play with your G.I. Joes," I'm like, no. Like, I won't break them. I'm like, it has nothing to do with you breaking them. You don't play the stories the way I like to. Like, you don't have the detail. It's not a rich enough story for me to play with you. So
that's funny you say that. I was not like that, but my son is, and so I'm having a hard time playing with him because he'll say, "Let's play Power Rangers," or we have Godzilla or Ultraman. And it's okay. And so I try to do something off script, apparently. And he's like, no, that's not. You got to do it this way.
Dad, we are not improvising this scene.
You're reading your line.
Stick to the script.
Yeah.
You have to get a script person in.
Exactly.
Mr. Superchano, your line is actually Ultraman. You are now on the precipice of defeat.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Like any time that Ultraman somehow comes up with a superpower karate move that takes down Godzilla, apparently I'm not allowed to do that. So I can see where that's coming from. Yeah. I see that he's not alone, so maybe he's not so crazy. But much like Johnny, I did not have an imaginary friend. I did read Indian in the Cupboard and thought if I put my G.I. Joes in a medicine cabinet, they might come to life. But I did not have imaginary friends.
When I was a really, really little kid, I must have been like, it's like one of my first memories I caught, like really like vivid memories is it was the old 60s Batman.
Oh yeah.
Batmobile.
Oh yeah.
And it was a shampoo bottle, and the end of it, the back quarter of the car screwed off, and then the shampoo would come out. And I remember putting that, and it was just like a solid piece of plastic, with soap in it. And I remember setting it on the side of the tub and thinking, like, once I use all the soap, this will turn into a real toy. The wheels will move. It'll make sounds. So I just have to be patient. And I just would, after all the soap was used up, I just remember sitting there, like, with it and just be like, all right, come on, when are you going to become a toy? Like, this is, and, like, I'd go to bed and run in there the next morning to the bathroom and be like, all right, oh, why isn't it a toy? Like, I just didn't understand why it wasn't transforming into a real functioning toy.
And this was last year?
Yeah, this was last year.
I was like, I bathed for no reason.
Yeah. Damn it. Tricked me into using soap.
All right. So
what about you?
No, go ahead. Francis. Yeah.
I got to hear Francis's.
Imaginary friend.
Oh, I had lots of them.
When did you stop imagining them?
Let me ask Terry right now. Terry? Wait, no. Well, I think like little girls play tea time, play tea parties, and you put all your little animals or your dolls, and you always play like mommy with your dolls. So
there was never like drama in the circle of friends.
No. Yeah. But so I didn't have an experience like that I can recall right now. But I think he did do a great job capturing what it is like to be little, and you have your own little private world. Because kids, they don't really have any control over anything, right? You have no like.
I have a great example of that. Is this friend I had? She had a little girl, and when the mom and I were sitting there watching a movie, and the little girl, she was probably like 3 or 4, comes running into the living room. She's like, "Mom, I have a real big problem." And she's like, "Why? What's up?" She goes, "My imaginary brother and my imaginary sister won't stop picking on me."
Wow.
And she's like, and I started laughing, and she like gave him this look like, "How dare you laugh at my imaginary sister and brother picking on me?" And she goes, "Well, why don't you just imagine that they're not?" And she goes, "Oh, okay, thanks." And she ran back in there. She's like, "Guys, you're not picking on me anymore." And then went back to playing, and that was that. Yeah,
that's pretty funny.
But okay, so then he jumps forward to like kind of explaining his career, like how he
at Warner Brothers, and kind of like at the height of Warner Brothers studio.
Which I agree.
Yeah.
It was very interesting to me because I started getting back into Warner Brothers around that time period, and it was definitely. It started with Roger Rabbit, and that kind of boomed a lot of the, especially Warner Brother cartoons.
I don't know if you guys remember this either. We are located in Sacramento. There used to be the downtown mall, the plaza or whatever. And there used to be, when I first moved here,
the Warner Brothers store.
The Warner Brothers store.
Yep.
Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Like Warner Brothers.
Yeah, they had the Fisherman's Wharf. It was just like the Disney store.
They were
it was amazing.
And I remember that from this comic book. I was like, oh, that's right. Like they were a big deal.
Oh, yeah.
And I was really into them.
You get your sweet Letterman's jacket with with all the Bugs Bunnies on the back, or a Tasmanian
Tweety
devil
bird
on the chest.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, so he was kind of like you said, he's at the height of their studio, and he's working his dream job. Really,
Right.
He's writing for Batman and for Tiny Toons.
Right.
And then he kind of gets pulled more into the world of Batman. I was, for whatever reason, I thought it was because he was a little bit more. I don't know. He was like writing decent. Like they didn't really talk about it. I just in my head I was like, oh, he must have been much more successful at writing Batman stories, or maybe like he contributed more.
Well, he was obviously a huge Batman fan from childhood, so he probably pursued that aggressively.
Yeah.
I think Bruce Timm might have also been involved
with getting him as the writer.
I think they had a relationship at Tiny Toons, and so that they pulled a lot of Tiny Toons people from there to move on to the Batman project.
And then it also covers his dating too at this time, and he's dating this actress. He thinks he's dating an actress. Spoiler alert. And she's just kind of using him. But she's under the impression that because Steven Spielberg had a hand in bringing Tiny Toons to the screen. I don't think he really had too much to do with Batman, but I know Tiny Toons was kind of and
Animaniacs.
That too, but Freakazoid.
Freakazoid as well.
Runs around in his underpants, freak of me, freak you.
That didn't take off.
I used to love that show.
I never saw that show.
You never saw Freakazoid?
No, it was good.
It was
a good
hilarious.
You know what? Just a moment of confession. I am glad that Johnny, who's the same age as me, knows those cartoons, because I always felt like maybe I shouldn't be watching cartoons.
Well, we were like 14, I think.
Yeah.
Or 13. I think I was in the 8th grade when Tiny Toons came on.
Oh yeah,
And then what was the one with the brother and two brothers and sister?
That's Animaniacs.
Oh, is that Animaniacs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Warner Brothers and Warner Sister.
Oh, yeah. Dot, right? Dot was her name. Yeah, I think we were like 13 or 14 when all those kind of boomed.
Right.
It was a good animation era because there was also Disney had Tailspin.
Oh yeah,
Darkwing Duck. Yeah. There's a lot of good
Gargoyles,
which is really fucking good.
Right?
I remember there was characters would die on there.
Oh yeah,
and I was like, what?
The guy in charge. Another segue, but the guy in charge of Gargoyles, I forgot his name now, but he was in charge.
Danny Gargoyle.
Right, exactly. He was in charge of Young Justice, which was on the Cartoon Network for I think 2 seasons, and it got canceled, much to the dismay of many fans. But
like Gargoyles did, got cut early.
Yeah, it still lived on in comics, but he encouraged people to watch it on Netflix, and they just greenlit. I think Netflix might have greenlit a 3rd season. So he's big in the comic book world still, the Gargoyles guy.
That's cool.
But
Good
anyway, sorry.
So Christmas came early for you this year when they announced that on Netflix?
Yes, basically. But I mean, it goes through his career, and he basically, once again, it's not like some movie where he proved his parents wrong. I mean, his parents kind of said, "Well, what kind of money can you make in cartoons?" But he's reached this point where he's really successful. He lives a nerd castle.
Yeah,
right. He has any toy he wants.
But he lives in an apartment,
right,
with all this shit. I had just watched this movie and it made me think, oh, I bet you that's where he was living. It was a very similar environment. I watched The 40-Year-Old Virgin just the other day.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like his apartment
with the chair. And
yeah,
all that.
and all the collectibles everywhere. Right. I was like, oh, I bet you that's how Paul Dini's house was in the 90s.
Right, and then anything he wanted, the video game system at the time was Super Nintendo.
Yeah,
but still, I mean, he was living the dream, and you would think he's got it all, but his love life was not
good.
Yeah.
And he says, because he starts going to more and more therapists as he gets older, he kind of bounces around, and there's this really good section with the therapist, and how is this thing? And he's like, well, I don't really have time to have this new script, and it was hard to decipher for me anyway, and I get what it's like to write and be on a deadline, and it does become consuming, but I felt like he was using that as an excuse to not go out there and date. Like, it wasn't like a legit, oh my God, I'm so busy. Like,
no, it totally was. I got that too, where he was just using it as an excuse not to be, to not take a risk. Yeah. He had an excuse, an out for.
Well, yeah, to be perfectly honest, I don't know how mature of a dating life he ever had.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's very good. And he kind of uses this, hey, I work in Hollywood, as his thing to get women.
He thought that would be who he knows. I think he mentions that, who he knows and what he does.
Yeah.
Well, and the actresses, that getting back to what I was saying earlier.
That's, I guess, to Vivian. He starts dating Vivian.
Yeah, and she, was under the impression that he works with Spielberg, which he kind of does, but not on a daily basis or anything.
Right.
And it feels like she's using him to get to Spielberg, but on the, to use almost a Two-Face reference, on the other side of the coin is he's using Spielberg to get to this girl.
Right, totally.
So it was an interesting dynamic. And she totally has no interest in him. And it's really, won't give it away, but the when he has the realization that they're just friends, it's kind of a gut punch.
Right.
And it reminded me when I was younger, and when I was 19 or 20 years old, and I was like, oh, I really like this girl. She's going to see how much I like her, and then realize oh, we're just friends. I'm like, oh, you fucking idiot. You should have just said something. If you had just said something initially right from the get-go, I'm romantically interested in you, everybody could be upfront about their intentions for the two of you. Whoever the other person would be like, well, I'm not romantically interested in you. So
yeah, and I think we've either been there or seen people who are just they have this fantasy, right, where they're in this relationship and somehow they're romancing, but they're not really romancing, right? They're being so subtle it's not even known to most people, and the other party involved has zero reciprocating feelings in regards to that.
Yeah, so I had a friend in high school, and when I was 19, 20, where he kind of made it clear he kind of wanted a relationship, but I already made
with you.
Yes, but I made it clear from the beginning, we're just friends, but we would still hang out, and I thought it was okay because I had been upfront, mm-hmm. He would have girlfriends and but we'd still go to dinner and something, not to brag, but he took me to Olive Garden. Right? But
damn,
yeah. You get all the bread sticks you want.
Yeah, but
soup and salad, baby.
Very clear, we're just friends, and I did care about him, and I I really liked him as that. But he always wanted more. And so I got to the point where like I couldn't be friends with him because I felt so bad about it.
Yeah.
I was like,
what's the decent thing to do? Just
yeah,
be like, hey,
I was like,
listen,
I
you can't.
And then like even later on, like when I was like married, like we kind of connected again and tried to be friends. And I just felt like he wanted more and I couldn't.
Jeez, really?
Yeah.
Wow. Even all those years later.
Yeah. So
Wow.
so I've been in both spots where like, yeah, people should just be upfront, but I've also been in the position where like, dude, I told you.
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
told you.
like, and yeah, I get that you like me and you're super great. And like one time he got like really mad and like, you only want the bad guy, blah blah blah. I was like, no, that's not true. I don't want you. I know, right? He's like, you want the. I'm like, I just don't want you. Like,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Well, okay, not to go off on too much of a tangent, but that always bothers me when people say, I'm the nice guy. I don't understand why she doesn't want me. I'm like nice, and she always goes out with bad boys. And I think the real problem is it's not so much you're the nice guy. You're not. It's not aggressive is not the proper term, but it's not. You have no initiative and you show no backbone and you're just.
Well,
you hit the nail on the head too. He was really a doormat, and
Yeah.
I didn't have a lot of respect for him.
Yeah, that's part of it too. And I mean, the other part of it is just, and when you're a kid, maybe you don't realize this. Like, sometimes people just aren't compatible. Like, you're not meant to date that person. And
I blame sitcoms, Wonder Years, all that stuff because you believe that. You know what? If it's meant to be, if you think about it hard enough, or you do some sort of proclamation of love. You put the stereo on top of your head and you play, what's his name? In your eyes.
The light, the heat.
Then suddenly the girl will like, oh my gosh.
You beat your meat.
I was dating this guy. You're Ducky, right? You're Ducky. And you think.
Ducky is the epitome of that.
And you think she's going to come for me. And she doesn't.
She goes for Blaine.
And
so true story. She was supposed to pick Ducky. That was how it was originally written.
Yep.
Right.
And it got rewritten. So
Molly
later
Ringwald
on,
went to John Hughes and was like, nope, she's not going to end up with Ducky. Like, it doesn't seem right. She should be with the rich guy.
Well, then he wrote another movie. Oh, I just forgot the name of it. It's one of my favorite 80s movies. And it's about where...
Buckeye Bonzaroo through the Eighth Dimension.
That is a fantastic film. They live?
So these friends... This guy, he gets a date with the hot redhead, and she's rich.
Some kind
of wonderful.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
Oh my god. And he ends up with his best friend.
Right.
And he's like he bought this girl some earrings, and he gives her the earrings, and he's like, "You look good in my future," and I cry every time. But yeah, you're right. That's Hollywood, right? Like right.
That's my friend Kelly. She grew up right across the street from San Pedro High School where that was filmed. And it's like one of her favorite movies. Is she like her house is literally across the street from where that movie took place, where they filmed it. But yeah, I just sometimes you're not, And that was the other thing. When I was younger, I would sometimes do that. Like, why is she with that guy? He's such a jerk, or whatever. And then I got older and I just realized, well, hey, if that's what that person wants, that's what they want. You can't if they want a shitty person, then they get to have a shitty person. That's not.
And it seems like that's
just
what.
And that's just like your impression of that person. Right. They could very well be a decent person.
Yeah. And it seems like what's interesting when he's on this date with Vivian before the bad thing happens, the characters are coming to him and talking to him.
Right.
Like they're like his subconscious. Like they're telling him she's using you, and he's trying to he's having this other side conversation while he's on this date.
Well, it's almost like the angels on your, the angel and the devil on your shoulder, but
Joker and the Batman.
But it's Joker, yeah, Joker.
I thought that played out pretty well.
No, it was cool. I really like the way he did that.
Yeah. So another thing about Vivian is she'll go to places with him, but she'll always meet him there. So he goes to walk her to her car after the dinner.
Yes.
And she says, "Hey, I can drive you home," and he is like, "No, I'm good. I want to walk. I can use the walk tonight." And he said, even in that moment, he was trying to make her jealous.
Well, it was like passive aggressive, where he wanted to make it seem like he had some other date to go to, or some other interesting thing where she would be like, "Oh, well, where are you going?"
Right.
Yeah.
Try to dangle that bait in front of her, but
instead of just being an adult and just be like, "Hey, I would like to spend some more time with you this evening."
But once again, given his life and background, and they kind of skip over a good portion of like his late teens, and I don't know what age he was, but early 20s or something. But he may be kind of at that time kind of stunted in terms of like interpersonal relationships.
Oh yeah, totally. Like he's it's his fantasies are easier to control and live in than the reality. Whereas the reality, if he had just listened to his own subconscious that was being displayed through comic book characters, had he realized, if he had listened and realized and made an adult decision like, hey, this woman doesn't want anything with me, I'm just going to let her know, hey, I'm not going to hang out at all anymore with you. Like, I have romantic feelings towards you. You are not reciprocating. Unfortunately, I can't be your friend. Then that would have been like his first adult decision.
But much like his items, much like his collectibles, she was sort of a trophy girlfriend. He could brag to his friends.
Oh, he said, yeah, right. He said he would do that in the studio and stuff.
I'm not such a nerd. Look at me. Yeah. I've got this really hot redhead.
And they went to premieres together.
Right, exactly.
And, so he was kind of getting something out of it too.
Right, exactly.
I will say too, at least he's not a jerk, because he never said, well, at least it's not in this book, like, hey, I can get you a meeting with Spielberg. I'll give him this DVD. You got to, you got to do your thing.
That's the sign of a blowjob.
Yeah, that's what I did. I pointed. But because he could have been the other
or
side of that.
Gone to his friends and be like, yeah, fuck that redhead.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
In many ways, it was very innocent. It was just kind of, he wanted people to kind of think. That was his always thing, was he wanted them to kind of put in their
the
head.
fantasy. He wanted to live in that fantasy. So in his walk away.
Oh, she offers to drive him back, but he's like, no, I'm going off, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So then in his walk away, he sees two individuals. He doesn't want to seem racist.
It's two black men, and it's the 90s, so who knows what they were. They could have been wearing Raiders part. Oh no, they were wearing hoodies.
Yeah,
that's right.
I'm not quite sure exactly where in the neighborhood they were at. Like, if I should think, oh, that's a dangerous neighborhood, and that's stupid thing to walk alone.
Yeah, well, like Paramount Studios is like in a really shitty neighborhood.
Yeah,
oh,
really?
So I'm wondering where they were eating at. Was it close to like a Hollywood studio?
Well, and what's funny about this, like, to jump ahead just a little bit before the beating scene, like when the police come, they're not going to do anything. But had they been half a mile up the road in Beverly Hills, the police would have done something.
Yeah.
But he's like not in a very good area based on that. Like not a completely bad area, I think, but not the best.
Yeah. And in trying not to be racist, and cross the street because it's implied these dudes look like hoods.
Right.
They immediately start assaulting him.
Right. Slug him in the face and just start. It looks like they're trying to kick his knee out, but he manages to not have that happen.
Yeah, so there's an interesting scene in this beatdown, and it's pretty vivid. It's a good few pages, and he talks about like his glasses went flying. The stuff they're saying to him, "Hey, motherfucker, you're gonna die," and I don't like to cuss. Sorry,
language. Oh my god.
But they're not. But they said like there's one part where he says, "Okay, they turned me around, and I'm bracing myself for it," and I was like, "Oh my god, they're gonna rape him, right?" And he's like,
you thought they were gonna
rape
him?
Because
I thought
like,
they were gonna kill him.
Well, no, because he said, "Oh no, they're gonna bust out my knee," and I was like, "Be grateful, it's just your knee," like. But
they didn't bust out your butt.
They did something to his thigh, and then after they beat the crap out of him, that's when they're like, "Oh, where's the wallet?"
Right.
Like they could have just been like,
well, and they implied that they're gonna shoot him.
A few times, they're gonna.
But really, they were just doing it to like buy
Right.
themselves some time to get away.
Right.
So like, close your eyes, you're gonna die, basically. And
I don't know if that was just his vivid imagination, but he manages to put himself together and try to stumble on his way back home. And do they almost run him over?
Yeah, they.
It's implied that.
Or they're like fucking with him,
right?
Like he wanders out into the street and they
drive right by.
Yeah.
Okay.
But our friend Matt, who was physically assaulted, he did the same thing. He got the shit kicked out of him, and by a random person, stumbled to his car. Doesn't remember the walk to his car or getting home. He just remembers winding up at home, and then his girlfriend was like, "You got to go to the hospital, man."
I believe that could happen too because you're in such a state of shock, and I think what is that?
Well, and head trauma.
Dissociative
right
kicks in, and your adrenaline kicks in, your survival skills kick in. So you're like, okay, let me get to a safe spot, let me get home, and then that's when the pain hits him. I think like he knows he's busted up, he knows things feel, but I think the shock finally kind of wears down when he gets home, and that's when he's like, this isn't. Oh, part. Oh, this is so. Before that, sorry, he gets home and then he gets the police. The police take him back, and they're basically, we're gonna do anything.
Well, they tell him. Well, the reality is, there's nothing to go off of. They don't have fingerprints.
Well, he says, "Here's a receipt from dinner. The guy touched it. My fingerprints could be on it." And the cop's like, "We're not gonna do that." He's like, in his head, he's like, Batman would have done that. Like, he's still like...
Well, yeah, and like I told you guys, my over Thanksgiving, my car was shot at by a BB gun, not a real gun, just a BB gun. But the cops, once I told them it was a BB gun, they were like, "You can file an online report." I was like, "You don't want to come and talk to me or look at the dent, figure out the trajectory." You know, it's like, because I didn't see the shooter. Yeah, what can we do?
Yeah. Well, and my job, I work for an animal shelter, and we. Just the other day, someone sent us a Facebook link to where someone's selling these, like, they're selling puppies, and in the state of California, puppies have to be up to a certain age before you can sell them. And so she sent the link, and I responded back. I was like, if you don't have an address, there's nothing we can do. We have to know where they're at. We can't investigate.
It's not like
illegal
Batman.
sales.
Yeah,
Batman can't get on his supercomputer and then suddenly
track it down and then beat the shit out of someone.
Yeah. And that's a great point. The difference between reality and this fantasy world is reality, you don't always get resolution. Yeah. You get screwed over and it sucks, and no one's going to do anything about it sometimes, and that sucks.
Sometimes they legally cannot do anything for you.
So then after the police, I'm laughing, it's not funny, but so after the police, he goes home and he calls Vivian to be like, you know, I just got like beat up. And what does she do? She talks about like one time she got like heckled on the street.
Yeah,
like she just
called
all about herself. And
then he calls the actress who does the
Harley
voice
Quinn
for Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
And she comes over and
she's very concerned.
Yeah, and she comes over and he says like she has a boyfriend, so it's not you're thinking, oh, they're gonna get together. And then they take him to the hospital, and they're like, dude. Yeah, the doctor says, dude. No, the doctor informs him. No.
Well, before that, no, he tries to self-medicate.
Yeah.
He tries to. He basically
drinks for like a day.
He drinks for a day. He takes a hot bath, like everything you're not supposed to do. Which I've heard where they talked about things like, sometimes when faced with trying to call 911, people don't call 911 right away. Like they call friends or something first.
Well, I've had to. It's you.
You want to seem like a bother. Like you feel like
no, you're not sure. Like, okay, so when I thought I had a blood clot in my arm, I was like, having worked in the medical field and in ERs for a number of years, I was like, that's not a good thing. I can tell my arm is numb, and like the veins, I can draw a line where the veins are normal and then they look like garden hoses. So that's not normal. I'm going to call a couple people and see if someone will drive me to the ER instead of, I should have it turned out to be nothing, but I should have called 911.
Well, I called an advice nurse one time. I was like really not feeling well. I gave her my symptoms. She's like, you know what? You should really go to the ER. I was like, it's not that serious. So I made a doctor's appointment and they did some things. And then a few days later, I wasn't feeling well, went to urgent care. Later that night, I had to go to the ER. I had gallstones.
Oh, yeah,
and
I had those.
It was so bad, though, that it was blocked up so bad that the acid was eating my pancreas.
Oh, my God.
And I had to get admitted that night. So normally when you have you have to have your gallbladder removed. They'll send you home for like 8 weeks so the stones can pass. They're like, no, you're staying here. We have to operate. But they couldn't till the levels calmed down for a few days. And so it's the same thing. It's like, okay, I know something's wrong. I don't want to go to the I think let me take some Pepto first.
Yeah.
Well, you just feel like if you're able to walk, you're not like the guy on TV, right? You're not the guy on ER where suddenly there's a tree stump sticking through his gut and there's like fire on your face. So you're like, I can work this off. But yeah, I can see where he's coming from. But yeah, the next day, the Harley Quinn voice actress comes and sees him, brings him a blender. I did kind of feel like there was kind of this, maybe he had feelings for her.
No, I didn't. I think
I got that impression.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
See, I didn't get that.
I got a little bit like.
I thought it was just like pure friendship and.
For her.
Yeah.
For him, he's like, man, I wish.
The forward for the book, though, real quick. Sorry, he says thanks for the blender.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, he makes mention of the blender, and I was like, what the fuck's he thinking about for a blender? And then when you read the story,
makes sense.
It makes sense. Yeah.
I think too, anytime you collaborate with somebody on anything, you kind of form a bond, and it's a little bit stronger.
I have no bond with you two.
Wow.
Nor I with you. This is mine.
Mine.
But I think probably he did. I got that impression too. He had a little bit of feelings for him. He even says, like, she has a boyfriend. It's not like that. Yeah, because she won't let it be like that. Like, if the opportunity arose.
He definitely had feelings for her. And then I think it pains him because they have a close relationship, and he wishes it could be.
No way, you guys are
no,
like she came to him, like she came in his hour of need
as friends,
but still,
as coworkers.
But you know what? We will hashtag him, and we will ask. And why would you write about a blender in the foreword if you don't love somebody?
He does platonically love her. Anyways, continue.
So anyway, he ends up going to the doctor as
his regular doctor.
Yeah,
and that's where they identify that his eye socket is shattered.
Like powder, right? Or it's like part of it turned to powder.
Well, he says later on they realize like there's parts of bone missing, so it must have just been pulverized into powder.
I didn't even know that could happen.
Yeah, I guess so. And then and so he has to have like 5 screws and plates and shit put in, and during his recovery, I believe it's during his recovery after the surgery.
Well, wait, sorry, I got to back up a little bit.
Okay.
So he's gonna have the surgery, and he goes to the studio to be like, "Hey, the guy, the head honcho of the studio is like, so you're gonna be out for a few weeks, but I need you to start the story."
And he's working on the first animated Batman movie, which is Batman: Mask of the Phantasm. Yeah, something like that. And
the guy, the first thing that people ask, like, "Wait, so you're gonna be out for 2 weeks? Like, can you start writing?" And like that's their number one priority, right? We're on deadline. We have a script.
In the forward, in defense of the head guy, he does say that the head guy is much nicer and that he comes across.
That's true. Yeah.
He's not such a taskmaster.
Right. But it was a big deal. I mean, I remember that because that was the animated series went from just TV to like they were actually going to have a feature-length film. So.
And it was pretty good, actually, too.
Yeah.
And I will say, even like to defend this guy too, they're on a tight schedule, and he's probably thinking, I might need to replace you, and that's that's another cost of this beating. Like it's not just facial and stuff. This could affect his career. So please continue, Johnny.
Well, then just real quick, the boss is though really nice, trying to give him like the really choice scenes, like the Joker stuff that he's really good at writing.
Yeah, because he knows he likes the Joker.
Right. Exactly.
But then during this time of recovery, Batman shows up in his mind, berating him for like, why didn't you do this? And
here's this judo move.
Yeah, and he's like, well, I like you, man. Nobody. He starts to realize like you're a fantasy. Like I almost feel like he was talking to himself, like that shit's a fantasy. You can't live that world. You can't live in that way anymore. Even before the beating, maybe you shouldn't have been living in such a fantasy world. But and then he starts to tell him like, you could have run away, you could have knocked on a door, you could have yelled for help, and it's implied several different times, like during the assault, and then afterwards, like he was under the impression, Paul Dini was, while he was being assaulted, that people were hiding or locking their doors and not.
He was in a neighborhood.
Yeah, it was like a residential area.
Yeah.
Well, I will say that. So I grew up in the southern SoCal area. We left in the early 90s, and it did become very, very bad. And like I remember when we got our security screen door and what a big deal that was and how safe we felt getting that door. And that's what you were told to do. Like you hear something, you don't go outside at all. You lock it up. And some people, this is so sad, but this is true, like certain neighborhoods at night, you wouldn't sit on your couch. You'd sit by your couch for drive-by shootings. Like you didn't want to get hit by a bullet. And I remember that. I remember those drills. So from the author's side, this is terrible. You're getting the crap beat out of you. Why isn't nobody helping you? I totally get that. But at the other end of that, as a woman, like if I was alone, I'm not going to run out there and help. I would call 911 though. Like I would be like, I call 911 on a lot lesser stuff. So
call 911 on me.
Yeah. So, but I would be like, hey, someone's getting the crap beat out of them and they might come for me next. Like, but I do get that, especially as a woman, I wouldn't answer the door for a guy. So.
And then it's interesting because I think we've all had situations where we've questioned why we've chose the path we did or made.
I don't know why I'm here like right now.
But it's interesting for him because, whereas we just have these voices in our heads, right, that are angels and demons, his manifestations are Batman and the Joker and other characters basically giving a body.
Yeah, like Poison Ivy shows up and like antagonizes him, and
right.
That's where I started kind of getting like, this sequence is too long. Why is Poison Ivy here? Like, you have women problems.
Yeah, that's why.
Yeah.
But anyway, so he starts to get better and starts to basically kind of grow up a little bit.
And he ends up buying a gun.
No, he rents it.
Oh, he rented it.
Yeah,
Why would you rent a gun?
Well, because he was going to buy a gun. I don't know if you got to this part of it. So he's going to buy a gun. And he's like, no, I'm not going to. And Batman shows him, like, remember you swore that you would not own a gun. Remember the reason why? And then it cuts back to when, and I'm not going to give it away, but like he almost shoots somebody when he's a kid. And then he flashes back and you can do that. You can rent guns if you just want to go to a firing range and shoot a gun and see how it feels, or you just want to relieve stress or whatever. So he just winds up renting. I think he backs out of it because the traumatic memory.
Well, you can talk about it. We're spoiling this.
No. I think it's like a poignant thing.
I don't know what you're talking about, so please tell me, Dennis.
We'll tell you afterwards.
Oh, right, because you haven't seen that. Never mind.
What? You're not going to spoil this? You spoil everything. Okay.
No, this is a brand new book. It's not like something that's been out for 20 years and everybody knows about it. It's been pilfered for everything in cinema.
And I think that's part of the storytelling with all the characters. It gets a little convoluted. Like, I can't keep as much track as I want to. And granted, I read it on a short time frame, but I really was like, I'm trying to look. I'm like trying to see. It gets a little convoluted and it's a little bit difficult to follow the whole hospital scene like that. And then I did see the gun and I thought he got one.
No. He winds up renting it and he remembers his vow and the reason why he made this vow never to own a gun because he almost killed someone. And then he backs out of it.
Oh, wait, I saw that. Okay. So one thing I did think, we're not there yet, right?
No, go for it.
Yeah.
Okay. So one thing I did think, and this, I'll own it. I'm sexist. Like, you're getting the crap beat out of you. You didn't do anything. And I almost felt like better that he'd bought a gun because I thought like, okay, he's finally empowering himself in some way. He's finally like, okay. So I carry mace. I have mace by my bedstand. I carry mace. At one point, my ex-husband, he bought a gun and I didn't want it. And I did not want a gun. So we ended up getting a shotgun because those are much less difficult to just go off accidentally. You have to.
Right.
Yeah. And I never felt comfortable with the gun and I don't have a gun to this day. I don't like having it. But one time I thought somebody was breaking into the house and I'll tell you, I grabbed the gun. Like because I was alone too. Like I was like, okay, I have, I didn't feel so. And one of my friends, okay, this is the sidetrack. She's so stupid. She's like, well, you don't need a gun. You just need to be vigilant. How do you be vigilant in your sleep, idiot? Like if someone's breaking into your house. Like,
if you were Batman, you'd be.
Yeah. And I have a friend. He keeps this really huge knife like in his mattress, like where the handle's where he could reach it. Because again, he doesn't want to have a gun. But the area he lives in, he doesn't feel very safe. And I remember he told me he keeps it sandwiched and he just has it in case he needs a knife. And I think it's okay to protect yourself however you choose. But for me, I was just like, really? You did nothing? Did nothing?
Well, no, I kind of identified what he was saying, though.
But if you get sucker punched...
Well, you can't at that point.
You can't.
Yeah,
if someone clocks you so fucking hard that your bell's wrong, you can't do shit about that.
And he's outnumbered. I mean, he thought this... If I do anything, I'm going to get killed. And they may have tried to done something worse.
That's true. Well, so
he even says I played possum.
Yeah, as a woman, I've been raised, and I know some of my other friends raised their girls this way. And this is really sad. This is a reality, though. You're raised from a very early age to not get raped. This is how to protect yourself against rape. You learn it for first dates. You learn it. So, like, if I ever saw two guys approaching, I don't care what color you are. I cross the street. I always have my keys in my hand, or I have my mace in my hand at night. I tell people where I am, where I'm going when I'm leaving, in case something happens. So, as a woman, you're just raised. I don't know if every woman is.
A little more awareness.
Yeah, and you're also raised to always be aware of your surroundings, protect yourself. And also, if something does happen to you, people are trying to say it's your fault because even Vivian said when she was talking to him about her, she's like, well, my mom said if you dress a certain way, something's going to happen to you. And I was like, but sadly, that's how women are raised.
Which brings me to my biggest critique about this book is there was some like unnecessary gratuity, like sexual gratuity in the book. I was like, what the fuck? This was the psychologist. The psychologist. She's dressed very sexy with her cleavage hanging out, and I was like,
and her legs,
like a very short skirt, and she's like sexy fantasy psychologist, like you would see in
like Harley Quinn before she became.
But it's still. I mean, it was like, come on, that's fucking stupid, unnecessary. And then the other one was there's just like an up close shot of Batwoman's boobs. And I was like, why is that there? There's no reason.
Because he has never touched a real one.
Well, because like Batwoman comes in at one point, or Batgirl comes in at one point. I forget the circumstances. But then it's just like, it's literally a box with just her tits inside the uniform. I was like, what does that have to fucking do with anything in the story?
Yeah, at least the psychologist part, once again, I felt he had feelings for her, and I think that was manifesting itself in the drawings.
But see, that was more of an artistic decision by the illustrator.
Right, but I wonder if that was based on
if he gave direction.
Right,
or if they took it,
maybe either she was inspiration for Harley Quinn, or...
Oh, I didn't even think of that.
Or, when you're revealing your feeling, he doesn't get to talk to women very much. So he's...
on an intimate level.
He's having a super intimate conversation with this psychologist. He's probably manifesting feelings for her. So these are like,
I wonder that's where
he's kind
Harley
of
Quinn was born out of.
Right, exactly.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
That's pretty awesome, because that's also a big issue for psychiatrists and psychologists. I think it's called transferring. I forget the term, but patients do fall in love with them.
Right.
It's a known thing.
Part of your oath. You can't date your patients.
Because it wasn't just the cleavage. I mean, there were specific shots where it's just his head and then her legs.
Like very Graduate. I thought that.
Yeah, exactly. That was
Robinson.
So I could see him like revealing feelings, but like kind of in the back of his head, like, she's really hot. Like, this is a guy who, like I said before, he's stunted.
Yeah. In
terms of his interpersonal growth, so he sees like these girls as pinups and unattainable like objects. He cannot get.
There's the story. It's a short story. It's like The Adventures of Wally or Willie or something. But it's interesting because it's this guy who's married unhappily, and he just is a doormat throughout life. But in his mind, they made a movie with it with Ben Stiller. It became a movie a few years ago. But in his mind, he's this war hero. He's all these things, and I kind of got that from this guy,
Walter Schmitty or something.
Yeah, Walter. Yeah. So, but. Paul Dini, I'll just say it, like, he's a loser. You have this great career, but you're kind of a loser. Not because you got beat up, but how he views women, how he sees women, how he has these problems interacting with people.
Yeah, but really. Well, go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
I think he owns it though, to a degree.
Yeah, he does. But I just kind of got this like loser vibe, especially like with all your. And I've got toys too. Like, I have my Jane Silent Bob. I have my Strange Brew. So. But I just kind of got this loser vibe from him. And part of that was just the way he views women and tries to interact with them. And you'll see in his book, like, he always tries to interact with these hot, big boob girls. What's wrong with the average girl? Like, maybe, but I don't think he's a loser in general. Like, I actually did like the story.
He was trying to compensate.
He's just a stunted human being. Or, he was kind of an Arrested Development.
Well, and then I don't know if you remember this, but one of the most heartbreaking portions of the book for me was he's getting ready for his surgery, and he's being surrounded by the cast of Rogues Gallery talking in his head as the nurse is trying to put the IV in him. And then I think Poison Ivy laughs at him because he's like, well, you did this to yourself before, now you're being critical. And I thought, whoa, did he have like a drug problem or something? Then it cuts like maybe a page or two later, and it's revealed that there was another girl that he was dating that didn't want to go to the Emmys with him.
Well, no, the Emmys weren't going to be aired on TV.
Right.
Yeah.
His section of it, which was the animation part.
And so they ended up with Tiny Toons, won the Emmy. He got an Emmy. And sometime later that night or that weekend, he ended up cutting himself with the Emmy. Like slashing himself. So self-mutilation, cutting to kind of relieve that tension, that pressure. And so obviously, I mean, he's got demons. I mean, when you grow up being the invisible kid, it's not just cartoons are my friends. I mean, there's a lot of self-hate, a lot of...
Well, I got the impression like he's not as like he wants to be more important than he is, kind of like, and that's why he was. Well, he wishes. I don't know. Like he's frustrated, so he took it out on himself. I don't know.
Right.
But in the book closing, it's revealed he's happily married. He like settled down. He grew up and
happily married to. I don't know if you know the cartoon character Zatanna. She is a magician.
Yeah.
She usually wears like these like fishnet stockings
with a
tuxedo,
a coat with tails.
He basically married Zatanna.
Oh, really?
His wife Misty Lee is like a super beautiful female magician who dresses like that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Well, what's funny too, going back to what you said about the Emmys and everything, like I just call him loser, but he is so successful, and I'm surprised he doesn't have more confidence, because to be a writer is hard, and he is a writer who is super successful, number one, gets paid probably a lot, number two, but number three, he writes what he loves. He's writing Batman. He grew up with Batman. Like you, to me, he couldn't be any more successful.
He helped
minus
create
the wife,
Batman Beyond, which was like an amazing cartoon.
And I think that's why I said I felt like he was a loser. Like, you are so amazing in what you're doing. You don't need that other stuff. Like, if you had more self-confidence, like, hey, I wrote friggin' Batman, I'd be like, whoa, Now I get not all women, but he is so, to be a paid anything, writer, artist,
anything creative.
Yeah, it's huge. And
I think you nailed it on the head, though. Depression affects people so deeply. It doesn't matter where you are in life, whether you're Robin Williams, whether you're Paul Dini. You could be at the top of your game. You could be making a boatload of money, have everything you want, but at the core, you could still be damaged. And if you don't address that properly, or you don't have someone to talk to, then you may take it out on yourself.
Yeah,
that's a very good point.
So what'd you think of the book?
Okay.
Wow, so much enthusiasm.
Overall, I did like it. And I think too, props, because we've seen this with a few other writers that we've read too. He's very honest, and props to that. That's hard because you could have downplayed that.
Well, it's very embarrassing to all of it is like
that Emmy scene. I would not want my friends knowing that.
Yeah, and I just called the poor guy a loser, right? I'm like, this guy's a loser. But he puts it out there. He puts everything on the table. Overall, I really liked it. Again, just the hospital scene where all the characters come in, and I don't really know that world as well as you guys do. So it just kind of became like, the sighing again. It was just like, okay, like I get it. It's page after page, and I'm like, I just stopped reading it.
But I think that was done to like show he had this imaginary group of characters there for him, but he didn't really have any real people there for him. It wasn't until afterwards his sister shows up, and then she's like, oh yeah, our parents are going to come in a couple days. Like, he didn't, in the moment, he was such a stunted person. He didn't have any real friendship or love surrounding him.
So I get that, but I feel like even if he did have friends, he still would have been in that world. And I feel like he still would have had all of that, all those characters coming in and out.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they would have popped in and out, but I think there would have been, if he had a well-rounded world, a well-rounded existence, there would have been people there to push those. Maybe they would have been there, but then when the actual people that cared about him showed up, those characters would have disappeared.
So a scene that I really, really loved too, and again, I'm not like a Joker fan. He writes this ending for Batman, and it ended up not getting used. And Batman, what he does, and he's so tired of killing people, and maybe this goes back to the guilt and all that with the gun. He's so tired of killing people, he locks up the Joker brick by brick, and he leaves one brick out. And that way he can give him food occasionally. He'll keep him there for decades. He says, as long as I hear the Joker's laugh, I know Gotham's safe. And the producers are like, hey, no, that's really too self-gratifying, or too, I forget the word they use, but they're like, we can't use this.
Yeah.
But he said in his mind, that's how he did it. He was able to block off. Here's all the bad. Here's the evil. I can't kill it. I can't get rid of it, but I can section it off.
Yeah,
and I really loved that. I was like, that was really powerfully done. Not just with the words, but with the drawing. So I did like this book overall. I think it's worth a read. I wish I had more time to kind of read it over a few days versus one day.
Right.
I think
Thanks,
I would.
Dennis.
Sorry.
No.
Sorry.
No, I left early Friday. This is all on me. This is my bad. But I liked it overall. Some of the drawing, I can say drawing. I liked it, but some of it I didn't.
Yeah, it's I like the illustrations. I wasn't bowled over by them. There was a couple times I was like, why did they make that decision to draw that? But overall, I enjoyed the illustrations, and I thought, I wouldn't have spent the money on the hard copy. I think it'd be better to wait for, instead of the hardback, wait for it to come out in a cheaper, paperback, a little cheaper form of it. It was an interesting story. I'd recommend giving it once over. Just if nothing else, you get to see interesting story about someone who's so heavily involved in Batman for the past 20, 30 years.
Yeah, I definitely like this story a lot. Like Francis said, it's a really personal story that I would never want to reveal to anyone I knew. And for him to just lay it out there was, pretty brave of him. I'm glad at the end. I liked we didn't mention it, but he tried to pitch a story for Batman that involved Neil Gaiman's Sandman.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting.
That was really cool. And then part of that was him coming to realize that he wasn't just putting cartoons out there. These things meant something to people. Like that guy he met at the record store where his wife who was dying with cancer, he and her would watch Tiny Toons together. Yeah. And so much like that, these stories, these episodes that he wrote, these characters mean a lot to people. And he's not just pushing something out and just getting a gold statue. These are part of people's lives. And much like any creative effort, whether it's music or art or, writing, when you put it out there, people incorporate it into their lives. They use it for different purposes. They use it to express how they love other people, how they use it as background music to enhance a celebration.
To enhance masturbating.
Yes, exactly. So, it means a lot for people. So it was good for him to come to grips with that realization that the product he was putting out wasn't just something.
It wasn't just cartoons.
Right, exactly. Some 13-year-old was going to look at it and put it in a plastic bag. This was for, could mean a lot for people. So, yeah, I liked it. Art was good. I liked that it used different styles to kind of convey things. Some of the choices were weird. Some of the choices were amazing. Like some of the shots I liked of the Joker. But it wasn't like super stellar. But yeah.
Yeah, I'd give it a C+.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend read it or borrow it from the library. Whatever you can do.
Or break into Francis's house and steal it.
No, don't say that.
She's got the shotgun.
I don't have it. Oh, that's right. Yeah, I used to. Not anymore.
Or does she?
Yeah, I got 2 cats. They will claw the crap out of you.
So where can people follow you, Francis?
On Instagram at Words and Waffles. You can see pictures of all the covers of the books that we've been reading.
Oh, hell yeah.
You can go to our webpage, gnexplorersclub.com, or follow us on Twitter at gnexplorersclub.
Oh, my turn?
Yeah. Well, I know you're not
so
doing
humble.
anything. I know.
Oh, my turn. You can follow me at Serious Talk Twit and my other podcast at stspodcast.com. And thanks for listening, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I apologize for my dogs growling and playing in the background. And I don't know if you guys could hear it, but I could.
I apologize for calling Paul a loser.
Yeah. We hope you've already read today's title because all 3 of us have, and we will be just blah, 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 blah. Damn it. I messed that part up.
I know.
Disgusting is a hard word for us.
Your voice sounds very nice.
Thanks. I should work like in the sex phone business when I'm sick. I make lots of money.
Wasn't going to go there, but okay.
One of my sister's friends, his sister did that from home. And so she'd be like on the phone with her little toddler, bouncing her toddler up and down. Like, and then, be like, oh, so what are you? I'm really wet. I'm wearing nothing but a T-shirt, staring at the beach.
Sweet emotion.
Thinking of your boner or whatever,
Wow, and you should do it, Johnny.
I know.
It's like, wow, I sold me.
I paint a picture, a sexy picture.
I think a new podcast is in there.
Johnny's Sexy Time Stories. Hey, so I was looking out the window, I got a boner. And then you were like doing something sexy. And then there was sex and then good night. That'd be the whole episode.
That's what hooked Sasha, huh?
Yeah.
Right there.